Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the Broken Brain Podcast's Monday Mental Health Tip. And I'm Dwight. You're here to share it with you because of how cool you are. Today's tip involves addiction, and I did that because I was thinking today about the end of August. Aren't we all? Looking forward to International Opioid Overdose Awareness Day, in which I do the annual Broken Brain live event. We're going to be broadcasting for several hours on that day for people to listen and learn about addiction. Particularly this year, we're going to talk about the element of avoidance and engagement and how that helps to perpetuate addiction when we are more engaged with our lives or detached. And of course, we'll touch on a lot of the things that we usually do, which is, relapse, trauma, and just all the other parts of addiction and overdose. But this year we are particularly focusing on how addiction becomes an unhealthy coping skill that takes us away from full engagement in our lives. So that's going to be the end of August. DwightHurst.com/live will have the information about the times and date and all that kind of stuff, as well as a link that you can use to join the event as well. There'll be links to listen and watch, and also, as always, a call-in feature where you can join the program in progress and share whatever you would like to share as well. So I want to introduce just that idea right now of what I mean when I say engagement versus avoidance, and then you can know what that's going to be about. So with addiction, one of the key indicators of whether or not something is an addictive problem, particularly with intoxicants and other things, there's lots of other what they call process addictions that can be addictive behaviors and things like that. They still have a neurochemical vibe or element to them. Because when we do things, we do trigger hormonal releases and such. But either way, one of the prevailing terms when we talk about addiction is self-medication or coping mechanisms. Or there's lots of other phrases that we use too. But those two in particular, they have to do with the idea that we're not doing addiction just because, it's fun, or because, I want to screw up everything in my life. It's not really for those reasons. Generally speaking, we develop an unhealthy coping mechanisms throughout life that we go to. And now that's where that gets into this scale. Let's think of this scale of engagement on one side and avoidance on the other. So all of us have elements of things in our lives which are either overwhelming or difficult, or even if they're good, sometimes they require change and other things like that. But there's all sorts of things that we don't like to engage with or that are difficult that we still have to engage with or are expected to engage with one way or the other. And in my experience, one of the major indicators of something being maladaptive to our life as a coping mechanism is how far does it pull us towards the avoidance side, okay? Now, the healthy side of engagement is when we're engaging with the facets of our life, the parts that we're passionate about, as well as the parts that we're not so passionate about that kind of suck. I had a boss one time, shout out to Cecily, my former boss out there. I didn't get her permission to use her full name, so I'm not going to. But anyway, I was talking to her one time, and she was asking me about the documentation, paperwork, and some other elements of my job that were not maybe my top favorites. And you might find that it's probably pretty rare to find a counselor who's like, I'm really in it for the paperwork. I have to talk to these people, so I have something to write in there. But, that's not usually the type of personality that you find in the social services or counseling industry. And Cecily gave me this interesting advice where she said, as your supervisor and everything, she's like, I think you do a good job. But I want you to be proud of the work that you do. In particular, be proud of the part of your job that you do not enjoy. And that's really stuck with me, is that idea of like, what about the parts that, you don't like very much? Can you be proud of being good at those? In fact, theoretically, if we're looking to be proud of ourselves, we can even be a little more proud if we can get ourselves to do something that we don't want to do, right? So full engagement would mean that I am doing the things that need to be done, that I am trying to do them. Now, I want to put one little caveat there. Engagement doesn't mean success. It's not the same thing. Engagement means I am doing stuff. Maybe I'm doing it well. Maybe I'm killing it. Maybe I'm doing it badly. Maybe I'm even making mistakes. Maybe I'm even beyond making mistakes. Maybe I'm making unhealthy choices in one way or another, or choices that aren't ideal in some ways, okay? But if I'm engaged and I am making those choices and trying and making an effort, I am still engaged. And this is very key when it comes to any kind of recovery from problematic intoxicant abuse, is that if I am plugged into my life and I'm trying, it doesn't mean everything's going to be great. Because as a matter of fact, the thinking process that says everything should be great is problematic. A lot of times that actually can lead us back to addictive, self-medicating type of behaviors, because we can't tolerate something that is imperfect, which is life, right? So am I doing things? Am I trying my best to be a good, and fill in the role there of whatever it is that you do in your life? And, am I trying to do it, but I'm actually not doing my best today? There's lots of times where we don't do our best. If we did our best all the time, I guess that would become normal. And then we would need a new best. Anyway. But even if it's a day where I'm not feeling it and it's just not coming together, I'm still doing stuff. I'm still involved, right? We think of engagement as something like, I don't know, I go to work and I have a great day and I finish this big project and I get accolades and awards and everyone carries me on their shoulders out to the parking lot and celebrates me at the end of the day, not throws me out. But what about the type of engagement where it's like nothing really came together, and maybe I'm going to be late on a project. I need to talk to the boss or my client or whoever it is that I'm trying to do this project for and say, oh my gosh, this isn't going well, and I either need a little support, or I need to just let you know that this isn't going the way it should. That's still engagement. You're still engaging with the task. So engagement does not equal success. Draw an equal sign, put that little line through it that looks like a slash mark, because that's the math that I remember of do not equals. Now, on the other side of the scale, if we're going straight up avoidance, I want to be very clear about this as well. Problematic avoidance means unplugging and not plugging back in from tasks, or avoiding something to the point where there might be, additional consequences, or just basically the loss of opportunity and those kinds of things. Something sometimes irreversible damages and sometimes more reversible, but basically something healthy isn't happening, or something bad is not being avoided or dealt with or taken care of, right? That's when I don't tell the boss or whoever that the project isn't going well, and then I get in trouble and get written up or something along those lines, generally speaking. Or what if I get away with it? Is that still engagement if I get away with not telling them anything? No, I don't think so. I think that would be an example of a thing that might actually make us less happy. One of the things we don't think of when it comes to avoidance is sometimes we avoid things that simply would add to our quality of life because they're hard, or they may be intimidating or scary, or, some of that jazz. So one important thing here is that there is a healthy range between engagement and distraction, let's say, or some low-key avoidance, low-key temporary. That was not correct. Low-key temporary. None of you know that I did that because of how I edited it out. Probably remembered to do that. But a sort of healthy temporary avoidance is actually important for engagement in our lives. So let's move, if you think of the scale, on the left-hand side is engagement, on the right-hand side is of complete avoidance, unhealthy avoidance. And I'm holding my hands up, the microphone's in between, so maybe you can hear the hand motions as they're going. But anyway, just a little down the scale, not all the way to avoidance, is some type of distraction away from the things that I might find to be overwhelming, that I'm just not up for right now. And that can be for a lot of reasons. Am I overwhelmed? Have I maybe already done all I can do right now and I just have to wait? Am I maybe going through an anxious or depressive episode of one kind or another, and I have to sort of renegotiate and reinterrogate how I'm going to engage with this? Do I have other chronic health issues? Or do I just need a day, right? Do I just need time to relax or unplug, in a healthy way? Am I going on a vacation, right? Is it season 2 of Poker Face? Or something else that I have been maybe looking forward to that I'm going to enjoy. So healthy distraction is actually a coping skill for life that is healthy. That's why I called it healthy distraction. So some of those behaviors may actually be similar or the same as avoidance behaviors. The difference is the intensity, the degree, and when or if I go back to engagement. So as always, extremes can be unhealthy. Extreme engagement, to the extreme. Is that how you say it? that is not as good either. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, and apparently kind of a wacko if you watch The Shining. Did I just say he was kind of a wacko in The Shining? Which is, of course, a movie starring Jack Nicholson, who you probably remember from The Two Jakes. But this actually is one way to measure if something is becoming habitual or addictive to the point of being damaging to our life, or the point of being problematic. In fact, in some ways, I'll say this very carefully, because in some ways it's even a little bit better of an indication than how often we engage in that behavior, or how often, even when it comes to intoxicants. Now, generally speaking, intensity and frequency are big risk indicators for addiction, and that is still true, of course. But I think that you also have to round out that evaluation with this question of engagement. Okay. When we look at layers of addiction, we're looking at, how much does someone do something? Does it become problematic? Is it maladaptive? And does it cost things? Does it become its own problem, in other words, that I now have to negotiate and deal with instead of just distracting from a problem? So that's a very important facet that I don't think we talk about often enough when it comes to that. Generally speaking, this is also one of the ways to self-evaluate. And if you're working in a harm reduction kind of orientation, which, as you know, is key to a lot of modern therapy and addiction treatment, then you're looking at the question of what is harmful about the habit or the intoxicant that one is using. And once again, intensity, frequency, those are big parts of it. But I would say, this engagement versus disengagement and avoidance piece is also important. The other reason that it's helpful is if you can look at what you are disengaging from in a problematic way, that also will help to develop non-substance related treatment interventions. Or NSRTI is the acronym I just made up for that. NSTRI, I think is how you pronounce that. But basically, when you are looking at addiction, it is important to remember not to just over-focus on the addictive behavior or the substance in question, right? If you certainly have to spend some time getting to know that pattern of that. But if you only focus on that, then you're really only focused on your drinking or your drug use. You're thinking about it a lot. And if you're thinking about it a lot, surprisingly, that makes us think about it a lot. And then relapse or slip-ups can sometimes come from overdwelling. This is one of the reasons why people don't recommend like white knuckling it, where you just bear it. Oh, I'm just gonna stop. And especially with that voice, because that's very jarring and abrasive. But when we do that, we over-focus sometimes on the behavior, and then, it's just not as powerful to help us to stop either. So one of the things that looking at our life and our engagement, and if we can ask ourselves, what is it about those things that make them overwhelming, or what is it about things that are healthy and that maybe we would actually enjoy that keep us from focusing on it? So a lot of people look for replacement behaviors for addiction that are either enjoyable or healthy. This would include, though, when we look at engagement, what are the things I'm avoiding that really kind of suck, and I don't really like that much. And then we can look at all of the different therapeutic ways you can go about that and say, is there a way that I can change the way that works? Can I change how I look at it, reframe it? Is there things I need to sort of accept about it? This is the little DBT, radical acceptance thing I'm doing right now, which is not what we're talking about today, but those are just some of the approaches to try to say, can I find something there to be proud of, to enjoy, or is it just I need to make myself do it, and then how do I do that? And all of a sudden, what are we doing? We're talking about sober, healthier behavior without over-obsessing on the substances. So that's a little bit of what we're going to see, in the live event at the end of August, is talking about some of those things and focusing on some of that as well and how that can be healthy. But for today, obviously, it's just a little thought I want to introduce out there for everybody to think about. And what are the things that, even if you have something that is kind of a bad habit in your life that distracts a lot of times, whatever that might be, most of us have some of these, disengaging. And then if you've ever had that become problematic for you to where you just can't engage in something, this is also something that can help, is to start maybe make a list of those things. Maybe ask what it is about those things that make them so avoidable and bad and things that I don't want to do. And then, it's always helpful to ask ourselves, what is the worst thing about something? And then maybe follow it up. What is the worst thing about that worst thing? And then we're off to the races of healing, everybody. So it's a good way to kind of start to evaluate those things. As we're coming up on the end of this month, let me plug our Charity of Focus for July 2025 AD, in case you're listening to this after some other major mile marker and we stop calling it AD. Really glad to emphasize the nonprofit Learning Works in Portland, Maine, which is a nonprofit organization that works with individuals who might be at risk for being left behind academically. They work with children and adults who could use academic help. They have different programs that they do in order to facilitate that. You can go to learningworks.me in order to learn more about this cool program. They're very highly rated on charity websites that I found, and also they really focus on actionable steps that can help with these types of problems. If you are a member of the Patreon, or if you choose to become a member of the Patreon before July ends, then 50% of your donation will go to Learning Works, and that will continue as long as you remain a donor. If you are already a Patreon member, and if you hear any of these charities and would like to switch your donation to one of those programs you're hearing, you can also let me know about that as well, and always flexible in that way to help make sure people are supporting. Or you can go to learningworks.me and donate directly, or if you're in that area, there may be ways to volunteer, things like that. It's always a good thing to check and see what a program might need in order to do well. So thanks, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your Monday, and we'll be back with you again tomorrow with a new episode.